fucking single take. Feels like it goes for like a minute, 2 minutes, maybe 3 or something when, you know, Happy's in the doorway in the very beginning when they first get back to Aunt May's apartment. A very long, uncut take, you know, like they don't do that. They don't have to do that in movies like this, right? But my man took time out to make some art, not just to make some commerce. Like, he's like, look, just because we're making a pop movie doesn't mean it can't fucking have cinematic elements to it, shit. Like, so it always impresses me. I'm like, I'm supposed to be a filmmaker, and I don't even think, like, the people, like somebody like John Watts, who's like, he's a filmmaker too, but like, he makes movies. He's a movie maker, for heaven's sakes. I'm a filmmaker. Indie filmmaker, best. So, naturally, like, his cinematic language is like incredibly impressive enough to capture, you know, big mainstream gig like this. But he also keeps it artistic. Like, there's a lot of transition he does. As I was watching the movie, I was like, that's fucking clever. That's clever. Little touches that nobody has to do because, like, we're all paying to see this movie anyway. It could be one long fucking shot of his ass Xerox over and over again, along as they, you know, push details forward 1 inch, and we'd all be okay with it. But I appreciate, like, the filmmaking that he brings to it, not just the movie making, if that makes sense. And I don't want it to sound reductive and some fucking websites do like that's I'm fucking looking up at this guy. I'll tell you right now, I'll never make a movie as entertaining and enjoyable as Spider-Man. No way. And that they earned theirs like over years of telling the story, you know, not even this current crew of people telling the story, but as far back as Sam Raimi, you know, when they started telling Spider-Man stories back there. Naturally, it's a big celebration of all things Spider-Man and what it means to be Peter Parker. Not all that different, or unrelated, rather, to, you know, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Feels like once they saw that work, they were like, oh, fuck it, let's do ours. And up the ante by making an incredibly special by bringing in another Spider-Man.
Watch that noise! Move back!
Beyond just being a movie,
I'll
right?
take you down.
$250 million opening weekend in a pandemic is like fucking beyond impressive. But even if we were in the middle of dealing with that's a huge fucking number. Only behind
Move in! Over that hurt!
Where they edged out. Everybody went to those theaters at a time when, you know, most movies are not thinking, which are going to be to less than rapturous attendance of Spider-Man opening breaking record, not pandemic record.
Where are you hiding, Outlander?
I love Spielberg and I love West Side Story, but like, one could make the argument that, like, even though it's a familiar story that, you know, people have seen it's not a musical version of it, maybe it's you could see many iterations of West Side Story and without leaving your house to see the new one. You can't see No Way Home anywhere but a theater. And, you know, it's also like, we've not seen this iteration. Yes, we've seen Spider-Man movies before, but like, you know, now it's Malibu Stacy with a new hat. They've added things. Well, they put Doctor Strange into it and whatnot. You know, this, but everyone will risk everything for that. It was going to be this. So the pressure was on. You know what I'm saying? Like, they could have just easily been like, look, all we have to do is get a couple Spider-Mans together just in a frame and be good. But they actually gave us a really touching movie that wasn't the movie I at least thought we were getting for the last 2 years. Like, I thought they were setting us up for, like, he's going to fucking fight the Sinister Six from across all the Spider-Man universes. And Yeah, but it wasn't so much about the fight as like how do we save them, which was so sweet. And you know, of course, it comes largely from Aunt May, who plays a very important role in this movie and says a very important line at a certain point. But it was so Peter Parker to want to save the bad guy. Finding out that they'd all die fighting Spider-Man, you know, clicked something in him where it's just like, I can't. Like, you know, with Aunt May being like helping out by being like, and then the cost of that decision. That's so fucking sad with Spider-Man. You know, the rate that drives decisions that he makes. You know, and he's always trying to do the right thing. And yet sometimes it's all false. Fucking bad. So, you know, in a series of movies where he's been criticized for not doing we all know from the comics who has to build his own web shooter. You know, he's Tony Stark Jr. Who a lot of people in this iteration of characters, they were able to tell a story make things back to the nth degree, where he's, you know, eventually like doing Doctor Strange like and then reduce it and get rid of it almost you know, what was they did? One last day. Kind of retcon that makes sense within the story, and then gives you one version of Spider-Man that people who didn't like the original Spider-Man have ever seen. One that has no connection as well to everybody, even though there's a Spider-Man. They don't know who Peter Parker is. It's such a sweet fucking touch. So bittersweet. I'm so glad they spent the last few minutes of the movie showing us rather than being like, well, we'll show you next time. But they let us see, like, Peter go into the world and see how life is. You know, people didn't even know he existed. You know, if you look closely, yeah, look at it. But why would she wear it? You know, she don't know where she got it. She just knows that she wants to wear it and stuff. And you can see they're going to try to bring the characters back together naturally somewhere down the road. But how fucking emo-licious was that ending? I know, like, there's the one ending of Spider-Man 2, you know, where she's like, who's going to save you, Peter Parker? And he still has to, like, walk away from her at the end of the day. I don't know if that was the first one or the second one, I can't remember. But, you know, the idea of with great power comes great responsibility, and he can't be happy and stuff like that. This version of that story where, like, he's got, because he chooses to be her hero, because he chooses, you know, the choice at the end to kind of essentially go through with the spell he was trying to go through in the first place. But knowing now that the whole world, all the people that care about him are going to forget him, and even the other people and stuff, I thought was so brave, and a brave and bold choice to strip the character back down in the third movie. And then strip him down so fucking far that they let him make his own suit. And it's blue as fuck. You know, he was swinging by the Clint Barton Memorial Christmas tree at the end of the movie, and he's wearing the blue spandex, man, and your heart is filled with fucking joy. But long before we go there, we have our story picks up right where our story left off in the last picture, with his identity being spoiled and whatnot. And as we've seen in the trailers, you know, life is difficult for Peter Parker, the whole world knowing who he is. And so he goes to Doctor Strange and says, hey, can you make everyone forget? And he's like, but wait, but not MJ. And wait, not Aunt May and Ned. But wait. And then the spell goes wrong. And because of that, the last thing, the words were like, anyone who knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man covers the spell. So, you know, everyone will forget except the people who already knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. So based on that terminology, we get characters who knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man from other of the character across the multiverse. But for us, the other Spider-Man, the other Spider-Man movies. The premise that they've been hitting that for a long time, most of the internet knew, and then they started giving away big time in the trailers. So that means you get Willem Dafoe back as Green Goblin. And mercifully, John Watts is like, we're going to break that fucking mask as soon as possible so that you can just work with the insanely expressive face of Willem Dafoe, who, like, is wonderful in the flick and is wearing a very Goblin-specific, reminiscent costume right down to the fucking hood and everything. Seeing him on his Batwing flyer gown is very cool. It allows them to bring back the Alfred Molina Dr. Octopus, Otto Octavius. It allows them to bring back Risa Fons, who played the Lizard in the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie. Jamie Foxx playing Electro, a much better version of Electro, who not only gets to come back, but gets retconned, rebooted, and actually gets a star mask at one point. But yeah, it's on the electricity across his face. And then, who was the other one that they brought back? Sandman as well. What's his name? Thomas Hayden Church. You know, and so the whole time you're like, all right, so Mysterio's got to be last. Because you're like, they must be doing Sinister Six, and that wasn't their aim. That's not the story that they were telling. They're all captured, and Strange is basement or whatever the fuck. And, you know, that's when Peter finds out that they're all going to get sent back to where they came from. Because apparently they're all sucked out of their stories right before they perished. So they don't have memory of dying or whatever. Like Otto Octavius is talking about his machine, the power of the sun in your hand, which was the plot of Spider-Man 2. And so they figure out, you know, that these cats came through the dimensional rifts based on their spell. The multiverse exists. And Doctor Strange is going to send them all back to their universes, but when they go back, their story continues and they're going to die fighting Spider-Man. And so, in a conversation with Aunt May, he tells him, like, you know, you got to try to help these people. You can't, like, just abandon them like that. You know, she's unconscious.
Really
He decides to try to do the right thing and reform, change the villain before sending them back. To do so, he has to trap Doctor Strange, which, you know, he's in the movie a bunch, and then all of a sudden he's not in the movie for a long time. And then we get to a place where Ned and MJ are looking for Peter, and you know, Ned has gotten hold of a sling ring, and it can do magic in this movie, and opens a portal, Doctor Strange style, that they're like, look for, you know, find Peter Parker. And they find the first, not their Peter Parker, but the first of the other Peter Parkers they find is Andrew Garfield, who I, like, appreciated so much more in this flick. I thought he was, like, of the two Spider-Man, I liked his Spider-Man, and I liked Tobey's Peter Parker. Like, you know, because I thought Andrew Garfield was way too hot, sexy, and cool to be Peter Parker. But he pulled off the Spider-Man insanely well. I went the other way in this movie. I thought he was, like, wonderful from the jump. He had such energy. It's adorable that they call him amazing. Like, at one point, it was like, you're amazing, and he is the amazing Spider-Man. You know, he references the death of Gwen, and does it emotionally, you know, which chokes you up. Even though, again, I wasn't, like, big into the other Spider-Man movies as much as I am to the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff. And still, that made me emotional. And then, of course, when they open up another portal, they find another Spider-Man, and that Spider-Man is the youth pastor Spider-Man. Peter Parker, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I guess Disney just put out their official titles this week. So, in reference, because now that the movie's out, they can talk about the fact that they've got other Spider-Man in the movie. So they're referring to Tobey's Spider-Man as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, or your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And they're referring to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man as the amazing Spider-Man. Each have their derivations. How cool is that? I saw a tweet before I went to see the movie where somebody was like, the world better get ready for the fact that those Spider-Men he meets are going to be Mysterio projection. And I was like, oh, mother. They did not. They fucking flat out played it straight, man. They're like, there's a multiverse pain, and they're going to fight all their villains together, but while trying to reform them. All of it was unexpected and wonderful for my money. The whole time I was... Now, what eventually happens, of course, is big-time spoilers, ladies and gentlemen. Norman Osborn seems like, you know, he could be reformed. He's playing it straight, playing a good guy at first. And then he goblins out, flips, and winds up killing beloved characters. Spoilers again if you've made it this far. I'll give you 3 seconds to get the fuck out. 3, 2, 1. So in the reverse of the Spider-Man lore, as most of us know it, Peter loses Aunt May as opposed to Uncle Ben. They never referenced. I thought this was going to be the movie. They were like when Ben died and stuff, but they didn't go for it. They kept the focus on Aunt May. So Aunt May, you know, gets hit by the Green Goblin's glider, backward wing glider, and you know, she looks worse for wear, and she's spitting out advice to Peter about how, you know, she finally says the words. Oh my God, got me so emotional, and it'll get me emotional again. In the theater, I was like rolling tears, where she paraphrases. She doesn't say with great power comes great responsibility. She says with great power must come great responsibility. And right then and there, you're like, they're gonna kill her. There's no way she lives after saying that line, and then they reveal that she's bleeding out and stuff. And so you have to watch Aunt May die in his arms, and that kid is such a good actor. Tom Holland, remember like when, you know, Tony Stark was dying and he was all like sad and shit? It's this dialed up to the nth degree. Really beautiful, sad moment in the Spider-Man universe, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Spider-Man. Wonderfully done, I thought. And then you've got, you know, the conundrum of like, he wants revenge. Fuck trying to help these people. Like, just fucking kill him yourself. Never mind sending him back and get him killed. But he ain't gonna do that. You know, he's gonna be the person that Aunt May wanted him to be, the person that he is, the hero that he is. And he's gonna have help from his fucking spider friends and stuff. So much so that at one point MJ falls off the Statue of Liberty where they're having the big conclusion, the big fight where I thought they might bump into the X-Men in the gift shop and shit. And as she's plummeting off, you see Andrew Garfield like freak the fuck out. Is the Amazing Spider-Man like, no, and he fucking saves her. I thought that was so fucking dope. Could have predicted it before I got in the theater, man. Once I saw that hand shot in the trailer, I was like, there's no way they don't let that guy make up for fucking Gwen Stacy. And so that was really sweet. Seeing Toby come back again, like I said earlier, like those weren't really my Spider-Man movies. Or my, you know, I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff. I have nothing but respect for those movies, but I wasn't like a hardcore fan. This movie made me a fan of those movies, so much so that I went back and rewatched those flips again. But seeing Tobey Maguire like slip into the character again, and into the suit, and make like back hurting jokes. Because remember, at one point he was like almost not going to be in the movie, like over a bet, something like that. When they were talking to Jake Gyllenhaal at one point. And all their interplay together about how, you know, he's got organic web shooters as opposed to those people that have to actually build their web shooters. And like Andrew Garfield's like, I have to like make mine with chemistry. Like, you know, science. Tom Holland effortlessly blending with those two. Andrew Garfield had one of the better lines in that scene though, I think, where he's just like, I always wanted brothers. Thought that was so fucking sweet, man. But you have like 3 incarnations of a really good guy. Like Peter Parker was just a good guy at heart. And you've got 3 generations of those actors that we've all seen play these characters before coming together. There's a poignancy to it beyond the content of just seeing actors return to roles, which we're going to see a lot of over the course of the next few years, because they figured out if you show us something you showed us when we were kids, we'll give you all the fucking money. So I know it's like, you know, easy programming or low-hanging fruit to be like, we're going to put all 3 Spider-Man in one movie and we know you're going to pay for it. They did it, but it wasn't cynical. Like, really kind of touching and really well done. I absolutely love the movie. It's like I said, barely a movie and crosses into an event. If you haven't seen it yet, kids, and you watch this, we told you, number one. But number two, see it as soon as you can. And I'm not necessarily one of those cats who's like, see it on the big screen, like most better filmmakers would tell you to do. I'm just as fine to watch shit at home. But this one, see it on the big screen. See it with a bunch of people. That's the key. Not that it's anything you can. Yeah, wear 100 masks if you gotta, but like 100 masks ain't gonna stifle the joy you feel. We only have like 10, 12 people in our room. You can still feel the palpable fucking joy from time to time. When fucking Matt Murdock caught a brick without even fucking looking and shit, come on. Everyone was like, oh, they got fire. Every time somebody showed up, we were like, oh. It's that movie, man. Just like Endgame, it's sad. Just like Snickers as well. So I give it like whip. These many fingers up. Whipped all over this picture. I really enjoyed it. It is honestly like that and Hawkeye season finale. I was like, oh, fucking Marvel. Just this. How about you, Captain?
You know, it's what I think we mentioned it walking out of the screening, that it's always easy to forget, especially the Tom Holland incarnation of Spider-Man, so much energy and so much like buoyancy. Like he always seems fucking thrilled to be Spider-Man. But Spider-Man is a tragedy. Like ultimately, it's a tragic story. You know, in every iteration of Spidey, he has to lose somebody in order to become Spider-Man. And so that moment where, you know, the three Spideys, the three Peters are on that roof, as Peter is just despondent that they have lost. Hey, you know, like, I lost Malcolm too. You know, I lost, you know, we've all lost something. Every moment, like, there's also a moment that you got into the Spider-Verse, which I kept thinking of a lot watching this movie, so back to back. But that idea that, like, yeah, every Spider-Man has to lose somebody. It's usually an Uncle Ben. For Miles, it's his Uncle Aaron. For Spider-Gwen, it's Peter Parker. So they all have to lose somebody. And so, and watching that level of tragedy kind of traced throughout the movie, to the very end, when he makes that decision, he's got to give up the life that he wants, and also the life that is right, the life that he has to leave. And so he has to give up the love of his life. He has to give up his best friend. He's got to give up his therapy to become a nobody in a world that doesn't. Like walking sad into that apartment with, you know, I don't have a job. He's functionally not a person in the world, so he's living in some weird, like, Hell's Kitchen flat with his own box of stuff, trying to move in and start building a life. Like, that's sad as fuck. But, you know, I love that they stuck to those guns about Spider-Man. They didn't give you a rosy version of him. But it's always, this kid hurts, and he's always hurting. I loved the beginning of this movie. You know, I loved how they established that his world is being broken. You know, and what the cost of that is. Hey. And how his friends can't get him college, and he can't go down the street, and flash trading books about him, all that stuff is great. And I love the last act of the movie. Like, I think once the Spider-Men show up, and once it becomes, you know, it's the three of them against the world. Especially the May stuff.
It looks like it's out of power.
You know, and I love the Remo Williams, like, deep cut for those old nerds where they're having their climactic fight on the Statue of Liberty with scaffolding.
There we go. Energy cells charged up.
I think, you know, for me, where the movie falters a little bit is that middle section, where it's, you know, Peter Parker and his to-do list of, do I kill these dudes, or not kill them, or just return them to where they go, or do I try to cure them? Which seems, it was never emotional for him in a real way, because none of the bad guys were his bad guys. Like, it became academic. Like, I was hoping that we would see culture. I was hoping we would see history. I was hoping that some of this threat would connect to him in a way that wasn't absolute.
You're right, I didn't think about it. So wait, his villains were Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and Granny Movie.
Electro. Looks like the cells is their power. I saw the device now.
Sandman and Lizard.
You can plug the energy cell in there.
Wow, you're right. He didn't have his own.
Too slow.
Yeah. And so,
no
like,
good.
So there's no
energy cells out of power.
His own though, meaning
right.
The Tom Holland. That's crazy. You're right. There's an emotional disattachment because there's no like, oh, I fought this cat before. They need time.
You know, and so
he he's all like, who are they?
Right, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? I don't know who you are, but I guess I should do the right thing because I'm a hero as opposed to, oh, I ruined your life by, like, paintballs you, dude. Remember how your wife left you and your daughter moved away and you were in prison and maybe you killed yourself in prison? Maybe there's some other multiverse version of me that actually killed you in combat? Mysterio, who did die, in this version, he doesn't die. And all of that stuff then becomes personal to him. It doesn't become human. It doesn't become distant. And to have that person be the one...
The energy cell must be damaged. It won't hold a charge for long.
Like his for real failure. To me, just would have made that deeper. Would have made it... Baby moving into Happy's bachelor pad so that they can, like...
Energy cells out of power.
Like, it's made a bunch of different shots fix each other. Like, it got a little, like, rompy in a way of it. Like, I get it. There's got to be a middle of a movie show. You know, the spell with Doctor Strange. Like, I don't know why Doctor Strange doesn't tell Peter from the jump, hey, man, if you're going to want to change this, like, this is what's going to happen. So before I start doing hand shit in the air, you can tell me what you want me to do. So it doesn't become an on the fly. Like, you're a grown-up, Doctor Strange. You know how magic works. Like, I buy Peter wanting it, but I also was kind of hoping that Doctor Strange would have been like, hey, man, this is how this is going to go down.
I think Mark's point is, before you do any hand stuff, you always get
Things
permission.
winding down.
Get Peter first.
Peter, I'm going to do some hand stuff, and it's going to make everyone
Energy cell
forget
loses
who
power
you are
fast.
before he did the hand
Gotta find a
stuff.
quicker
You're
way
right.
to get to the
Peter's
elevator.
got the dick move with Doctor Strange to be like, hey man, yeah, we're going to fix this, and we're going to fix this. You'll fuck your life up. He's, wait. Like, you can understand Peter having reservations at the last second, trying to throw in caveat.
Yeah, you know, and also, like, not for nothing, but a better wish would have been, can you make it so Mysterio never exists? And that way, there's nobody to give up his secret. There's nobody to anybody forget nothing except that dude. And who cares about that dude?
Good night.
He did anyway. But that's neither here nor there, boys and girls.
I hadn't thought about that.
And I will say, like, a friend of mine, an old boss, Sean Simmons, texted me. He's like, wouldn't it have been awesome if Happy showed up in an Iron Man suit to punch the shit out of the Green Goblin for killing the love of his life? And I was like, yes, it would have. Give me Angry Happy in fucking Stark Tech.
Angry Happy.
Angry Happy. Give me Mad Hogan.
Yeah, him showing up in a Hulkbuster shoot.
Yeah.
No, that would have been nice.
Like, you know, to your point, to everybody's point, where this movie lands and how it resolves and how that emotional story, because it's not cameos. These guys are not just bumping in to, like, wave and say, look, remember me. You know, it is very much about their stories too, specifically the Andrew Garfield one, because I feel like he was the great Spider-Man in not great Spider-Man movies that nobody gives any credit to, and so to see him actually, like, kind of spread out and own the character and be funny and be awkward and be tragic and to sort of redeem himself a little bit, like that moment where he saves MJ is wonderful. Really, because you realize that it has been haunting this guy for decades. That he failed, and so he gets a chance to win.
He is more enjoyable as Spider-Man in 20 minutes of this movie than I think he was in his previous two movies. There is a lightness to his performance, and I enjoyed him as Spider-Man in those previous two movies, but he is having a ball. And it's like, hey, this ain't my movie, I'm a guest star. I get to, you know, I'm not driving the narrative forward like fucking this kid is this time. But number one, Andrew Garfield is a wonderful fucking actor just to begin with. He does a great Jim Baker in the Eyes of Tammy Faye that's out right now. And of course we all loved him in the Social Network and stuff. But you know, he's charming as fuck in No Way Home. And I'm not raising him and lowering Toby. Toby's wonderful in his very Toby way, but I think Andrew Garfield was the surprise for me, and it sounds like for you too, where you walk up going like he was the you know, if you're putting that together, I'm not gonna say he's the afterthought, but the first person you gotta get is Toby. Because if you showed up to the party and you're like, look who's back, it's Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, people would be like, oh awesome, what about Toby? Is he there? Because that's so many people's Spider-Man. So they delivered Toby And that allowed Andrew to be like, you know, yeah, I'm the other Spider-Man. And fill this space that he didn't get to fill before. He was fun and light. I'm not saying he wasn't fun in those other movies, but it was, I don't know, it benefited him greatly that I was going to say that Toby was in the movie, but not as a comparison. Just like if you don't get Toby, something tells me they don't go for it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
you know, that like the Mark Webb Spider-Man movies weren't as beloved as the Sam Raimi ones. And Toby being the first Spider-Man, it's like if you don't land him, then you probably let the idea go altogether. I'm glad they landed him because it allowed Andrew Garfield to shine in some
Yeah,
way.
totally.
Yeah.
I was listening.
Sorry, I interrupted. Back to you.
No, I was listening to a friend of mine, Joanna Robinson. She was talking on this podcast for the Ringerverse about how Kevin Feige's relationship to all of these Spider-Man movies are different. Where for the Tobey movies, he was an assistant. Like he was, I think it was Avi Arاد's assistant or something like that. But he was relatively low level. He was in a lot of meetings, but never said anything because that wasn't his job. Like he was present, but not vocal. For the Mark Webb Andrew Garfield movies, he was an executive producer, but not in a way that makes that they gave him any real power. So he would give notes that they ignored by and large, because he was still like, you know, Iron Man was happening, the very beginnings of the MCU we know were happening, and he didn't have the juice yet to kind of come in and say, this is how you should make a Spider-Man movie. And so by the time he gets to the Tom Holland movies, he's the man. Like, he's got the power. He's got the juice. He's like post-Avengers, there's, you know, that dude absolutely could then go to Sony and begin, you know, saying, if we're going to make a Spider-Man movie, I'm making your Spider-Man movie with Amy Pascal, of course. And so to watch him get to do the Andrew Garfield version of Spider-Man that he wanted to do that nobody would listen to him, and to get him to position Tobey in the way that he always felt like working under those guys and being with Raimi at the beginning and understanding the juice and the joy that he brought to it, him getting to finally put his bow on Spider-Man with every version that he's had anything to do with is actually kind of lovely and kind of wonderful. If I had one thing that I was hoping I would see but didn't, it was Chris Pine's Spider-Man. You know, Peter Parker, like that guy, the blonde one, the golden boy, the Captain America of Peter Parker's. And I was fingers crossing for Miles Morales. You know, and I know that is a much bigger get and a much bigger hill to climb, because once you cast live action Miles Morales, that's your guy.
And I think though that it won't be a multiverse decision. Like it feels like they're going to put Miles Morales into the same universe with the current Spider-Man, who I would assume at that point would be Tom Holland.
Right.
I for one would prefer that. I would like him to be the Spider-Man of Earth Prime or whatever the fuck they're calling it. Or was it Earth 626 or something?
Yeah, 616.
616.
But yeah, like I was just. Like I kept wanting, like, give me the thing that I didn't know I was going to get, because I knew I was getting Andrew and Tobey. But what's that one surprise that they did manage to keep under wraps, because everything else leaked like a sieve at Sony Security. It's like, oh yeah, we got Matt Murdock, sure, yeah, we got all these bad guys, yeah, we got three Spider-Men. Okay, what else are we doing? No, that's about it. There's nothing else to tell anybody.
Yeah, it was. There was no. I mean, the storyline was surprising as much as like, oh, he's going to try to cure them all and stuff. You knew someone was going to perish, and you know, it's a lot of people speculate before the movie it's going to be happy, but it's like, I don't know, it's going to be happy.
Yeah.
Much as somebody very close to him, as we see, that's what happened. But it was funny because it played very much like a light movie, in as much as, you know, like it's not endgame serious, very like. There's some levity to it, and then it does turn endgame serious. At one point, you get, you know, Tom Holland Spider-Man about to fucking behead Norman Osborn with his own glider and stuff, and then Tobey has to friendly neighborhood Spider-Man has to stop him to tell him like it ain't worth it, don't do it, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they fucking tag Green Goblin instead and give him the cure and stuff like that. Like, that is so out of the comics, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've read those comics when I was fucking kids, And it was never like Spider-Man's like, I'm gonna fucking kill him. Like, it was always like, I gotta help these people.
I mean, I think the other thing that I was thinking, and it only occurred to me now, is that if the spell is conjuring and bringing forth everybody who knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, then it should not have brought only villains. And so, like, that moment when he's about to kill Green Goblin and the other Spider-Men are trying to implore him not to, how amazing would it have been if another Aunt May walked in, and another Aunt May walked in, and all of the Aunt Mays, either it's the Sally Fields, or it's the little goblins, or the whatever.
That's not fair. Don't write a bucket scene. But you're right. That would have been really, especially considering he lost an Aunt.
He just lost his Aunt May, so a bunch of Aunt Mays show up and say, Peter, this is not you, kid. Like, I know you're angry. You're just as angry as you were when you lost your Uncle Ben. But this isn't the way.
Howdy there, Internet people, it's Bo again. So today we're going to talk about some news out of South Carolina involving the Attorney General, Jason Ravnsborg. It involves conduct that occurred back in 2020 and looks to be leading to a possible impeachment. Back in 2020, the Attorney General was driving down a rural country road and, according to him, hit something, didn't know what it was, but like a good law-abiding citizen, called 911 and reported it, and he went home. The next day, the Attorney General returned to the scene to find the pedestrian that he had hit, and reported that discovery. Was driving down a rule that occurred back in 2020 and looks to be leading to a possible impeachment. Back in 2020, the Attorney General was driving down a rural country road and, according to him, hit something, didn't know what it was, but like a good law-abiding citizen, called 911 and reported it, and he went home. The next day, the Attorney General returned to the scene to find the pedestrian that he hit, and reported that discovery. South Dakota State troopers are skeptical of his chain of events there. They provided a presentation to the state legislature that indicated they believed the pedestrian was on the hood of the vehicle for about 100 feet.
Got it.
That,
The elevator should have power.
The impact and the shattered windshield should have told the Attorney General what he did, especially
This thing
considering
still works.
eyeglasses were found in the vehicle. A select committee there determined that the AG's conduct did not warrant impeachment. However, there are a number of legislators who plan on proceeding anyway. There are drafted proposals for impeachment. The AG pled no contest to some misdemeanor crimes and settled with the pedestrian's widow privately. The AG there is in some way supported by Trump. Seems to have some connection there. It's not clear how many Republicans are supporting Trump. The Attorney General is also a Republican. But it is likely that there's enough votes to kind of force the Senate to at least consider it. The state troopers were apparently very convincing with their evidence and their the doubt that they cast on the Attorney General's narrative. I think that most believed the AG would retire, not run for re-election, resign maybe. Since none of that happened, and it looks like the AG is going to run for re-election, that may be driving this push. Normally, if it's capitalized on, it doesn't quite take so long, especially when you're talking about state politics. So we'll have to wait and see. It looks like the vote as to whether or not to pursue these impeachment will take place on Tuesday. So, anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.
This is clearly how to get out here. There's more into it. Reach it. to this. The door needs a key module and a 2-part code to open. Sounds like I might find those things higher up.
Good night. What? What is it, huh? What is it? Daddy go bed? What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? That must be where you had your... Alright, that's enough. That's enough. You wanna go to bed? Go to bed? Okay. What is it? Huh? What is it, Cooper?
nothing worked. Errors and messages, and no matter how many times I had to go to Fandango, and even Fandango was having some issues. Adam's Tickets was sluggish. And then even when you did buy your tickets to them, they couldn't apply your A-list or your awards memberships and all that kind of stuff. So problems. So clearly, a lot of people were excited. Well, now we're starting to get some actual information. Fandango is reporting that this is the biggest single-day ticket sales they've had since Spider-Man No Way Home opened. That means the Batman, which did real well, it eclipsed the Batman's ticket sales for opening weekend, which is not terribly surprising. We talked about all the reasons many, many times about why Batman shouldn't have done as well as it did. By the way, it's already well over 700 million worldwide. Good for the Batman. But on top of that, you know, then we're on to, okay, it'll clear 100 million. Can it be 150 million? Could it get 150 million opening weekend? Well, the word that the person who wrote in the question mentioned this, but I've been seeing this too, is that the numbers for the Doctor Strange opening day ticket sales are likened unto Star Wars Rogue One. Now remember, that is pre-pandemic, that is, you know, without anything like that, right? And Star Wars Rogue One, it ended up making...
Goodbye scene. First...
There you have it, folks. Conclusive proof that Spider...
Seen the movie. My non-spoiler review is available if you go back to the video page. There's a little thing up here in the corner. You can click on that. I know a lot of people say, like, well, you know what? I'll watch the spoiler review. If it sounds like I like it, then I want to go to the movie. Just trust me on this one. Go see the movie. It's a really, really, really good movie. Come back, enjoy the spoiler talk after you experience it in the theater, because this was an awesome theater experience. And I have to say, this was the first sold-out movie I've been to since the pandemic, really. And we go to a lot of movies here in town, and we've been to a lot of movies on these Thursday night preview nights. I'm filming this late Thursday night / early Friday morning. We've been in preview audience crowds for Venom and lots of different movies that have done well at the box office, but none of them have been close to sold out. This one, I think there was maybe 10 free seats in the entire theater, and it was just such a great experience to be back in a theater with a crowd like this, and with a movie that was actually working. And this movie works so well. And to hear people laugh when they should laugh, and cry when they should cry, and gasp when they should gasp, the applause, the cheers, it was a magical movie experience. For anybody that says that the theatrical experience is the same as watching it at home, you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong on every movie, but you are wrong on movies like this, because this was a fantastic theatrical experience and a wonderful experience watching this with a crowd. I saw this on Tuesday night as part of a press screening. I went again on Thursday because Mara didn't get to go with me on Tuesday, and so it was great to watch it through her eyes, watch it through the eyes of the crowd, and I'm so glad that I did, because there are very few movies I've seen that had this kind of energy. The Force Awakens is one of them, Avengers Endgame is another one, but where you can just tell that this movie has sort of worked a spell over the audience, and it was really good. I mean, I guess it is somewhat fitting that this movie would cast a spell over the audience, since it's a movie about casting spells. So I brought a notebook with me, and I said, well, you know, I'm going to jot down some things that I see that I remember for the spoiler review. And by the end of the movie, I'd written about 3 pages of notes. So strap in, because I've got a lot that I want to talk about. If you got somewhere to go and you haven't subscribed to the audio podcast channel, then you can find all that information down there below and take it, you know, download it, take it with you on the go. Because there's so many things that I want to talk about, so many things that I love about this movie, and I think I liked it even more the second time than I did the first time, because I knew what was coming, and I was anticipating certain things, and there were certain dots that I was able to connect that we'll talk about as we go through this review. And it was so hard to do the non-spoiler review, because there were so many things I couldn't even go into. Like, I didn't want to go into any territory that it seemed like I was going to give away any of the secrets, but so many of the things that I love about this movie deal exclusively with spoilery things. So without further ado, let's jump into the movie. I'll kind of start at the beginning, but I'm going to jump around as we go, and let's talk about some of the great things about Spider-Man No Way Home.
There you have it, folks. Conclusive proof that Spider-Man was responsible for the brutal murder of Mysterio.
So we open this movie literally at the end of the last movie, Spider-Man Far From Home. We have J. Jonah Jameson broadcasting Spider-Man's secret identity, and one of the shots that I love was cuts Jameson in a shot like this to the apartment that he was broadcasting. this sort of dingy apartment against this green screen, so it looks professional, but then, if you cut out a little bit wider, he's just some guy in a room, which, I mean, hello. I never thought that I would actually feel sympathetic for J. Jonah Jameson, but now that I think about it, he's just a guy trying to make a living and trying to bring down that menace Spider-Man. Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't know where that came from. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's keep going. It was great to see J.K. Simmons. He was able to play, again, the comedic part of the J. Jonah Jameson thing, the idea that he was selling supplements, Daily Bugle supplements, as his star began to rise. A lot of funny stuff. I did kind of expect Jameson to play a more crucial role in this movie. He really is just sort of in the background, but that's not really a problem I have with the film. It's really just more how it was different from the movie that I was expecting, and this movie surprised me in a lot of ways. So we get the return of Damage Control here. They arrest Peter after his identity is exposed, and it's kind of fitting because we saw Damage Control very early on in the first MCU Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Homecoming.
The Department of Damage Control will oversee the collection and storage of alien and other exotic materials.
And then it turns out that all of the hashtag shirt sleeve speculation during the interrogation scene with Peter, it seems, was not accurate about that being Daredevil, but we do very shortly thereafter get an appearance from Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, and it's just great to see him back in the mix. I really love the Daredevil TV show, and it seemed like they were all in Netflix movie jail for some reason. Like, they had all just been benched. They don't show up in Endgame, they don't show up anywhere, but just having Charlie Cox back is great. I hope that however they work him back in, that they don't sand off the rough edges, because I liked the rough edges on Daredevil, and I hope that they're able to go back to that kind of territory again. But he also fit well into this film. The brick coming through the window, which he catches, and I love the idea of like this sort of superpower that he's able to show, and I'm a very good lawyer. One thing that I did notice is that on the brick, somebody had written a message, "We believe Mysterio." The believe was misspelled. The I and the E were inverted, which is kind of a sly kind of poke at the conspiracy theorists. But I also noticed that when Peter goes back to school and he meets the faculty, that Coach Wilson, who's played by Hannibal Buress, was openly a conspiracy theorist, and he obviously thought that Spider-Man killed Mysterio. He was not on Peter Parker's side, and it makes me wonder, I mean, he's a conspiracy theorist. Everybody seemed to know where Peter lived, but as a faculty member at school, know where Peter lived. He's a gym coach, so he should be in reasonably good shape. Maybe he's got a pretty good arm. Was Coach Wilson the guy who throws the brick through Peter Parker's apartment window? Just something to think about. Something to think about. A little conspiracy theory of my own. When we talk about the plot of the movie, one thing that I really liked about this film is that Peter is not motivated solely by self-interest, but at the same time, he kind of has to learn what a selfless act is, because he goes to Doctor Strange largely not because he doesn't get into MIT, but because he sees the effect that it has on Ned and MJ, and he realizes that him being Spider-Man is hurting the people that he loves. But the whole movie happens because he can't quite make that step to the pure selfless act. He interjects and he says, well, not MJ and not Ned and not Aunt May, and so you have to add all these caveats and the spell goes out of control, and that's why everything good and bad in the movie happens. By the time we get to the end of the film, the only way that Peter can save the world is by going to Doctor Strange and requesting that he specifically wipe the memory of himself from everyone that he knows and loves. And it is a pure selfless act because he's doing this for the benefit of others at great cost to himself. It's almost like he has great power, but with it comes great responsibility. It's the lesson that every Spider-Man has had to learn in every iteration that we've seen. It's just that it's set up from the beginning of this movie to the end, and it comes full circle, all the way down to the fact that Peter, at the end, chooses not to try to tell MJ who he is because he notices that he could potentially be putting her in danger. And that's called character growth. And it's not something that you see in a lot of big budget movies. You see it in the best ones, but you don't see it in a lot of the other ones. And I love that they're devoted to that. This is really a strong character building movie for Peter. And I think that Tom Holland did a great job across the board in all of these scenes. When we talk about Doctor Strange, he wasn't in the movie that much. He's suspended above the Grand Canyon for a lot of it. And I've seen a lot of people bring it up as a negative, and I will say that he does really just seem to be there as the exciting incident. And after he's done what he needs to do, you have to get him out of the picture, because if he's there the whole time, then it doesn't really make sense. You know, you have to give the spider people some time to breathe and give Peter his own movie. You don't want another situation like with Spider-Man Homecoming, and it worked for that movie, but like where you have another Avenger kind of hovering over Peter's shoulder. This is so much about Peter becoming his own man, his own Spider-Man. I did think it was funny that because Doctor Strange was blipped away, that Wong has now inherited the title of Sorcerer Supreme. It kind of makes sense why he's so forward in Shang-Chi, and he's the one that's out there recruiting. I think that that's a great way of turning that dynamic on its head. With the Doctor Strange stuff, though, there were some changes from the trailers for the film, and I thought it kind of informs a lot of the different ways that Marvel makes movies. The first one is during the mirror dimension fight. The